created for you, which starts on this upcoming Monday. And this course is going to be 1 week long, starting on Monday, classes from Monday to Saturday, every single day at 7 p.m. Now, I know that you all want to learn about this, so let me tell you, we will be having 3 math classes as well as 3 science classes, and you are going to be having lots of homework and as well as tests on this during this course. And students, you will not only get to learn with teachers like me who are specializing in our subjects, but you will also have your own personal teacher. So this mentor teacher is going to be responsible for tracking your progress throughout this course, and what they will be doing is helping you with your homework and with your quizzes. So whenever you have questions, all you have to do is reach out to your mentor teacher and they will be there to help you out right away. Now, starting off with our, if you are interested in the bridge course students, let me tell you a little bit more about this course at the end of this session. But for now, if you're ready and interested, you can click on the link in the description box and go ahead and enroll. So like I said, let me introduce myself quickly. My name is Mitali ma'am. I have a degree from Ohio State University, and I am an English master teacher here at ODA. Now, I have been teaching for more than 3 years, and I have mentored more than 15,000 students, and I'm happy that I get to be here with all of you. Now, like I said, we are going to be talking about phrases and clauses. But before we understand those, let's first look at these examples. Do you think these are sentences? Soldiers in a parade, and because of her good behavior. Students, do you think that both of these are sentences? So I'm sure that you have realized by now that these are not sentences. So you might be wondering, what are these? Right? These are called phrases. So we have phrases which are small groups of words. They do not contain verbs. I hope you all remember what verbs are, students. Verbs are action words, and phrases do not contain these verbs. So as we saw in our previous example, soldiers in a parade, and because of her good behavior. Both of these groups of words do not contain any verbs and are therefore called phrases. So what do you think? Do you think that phrases have to make sense? So what that means is, do you think that the way we arrange the words in a phrase has to make sense? So, of course, students, phrases have to make sense. So phrases are essentially small groups of words that are arranged in a way that they make sense. Now, on this a little bit more, can you tell me if this is a phrase here? The over rainbow. What do you think? Is this a phrase? Of course not, students. The over rainbow makes no sense. If we were to rearrange these words and say over the rainbow, in that case, that becomes a phrase because then this group of words makes sense. Next, do you think that phrases express a complete thought? Now, you all know that sentences express a complete thought. What do we think about phrases? Do we think that phrases will also express a complete thought? Of course not, students. Phrases, which are parts of a sentence, do not express a complete thought. And if they do not express a complete thought, do you think that they can exist independently? If phrases don't express one complete thought just on their own, do you think that they can exist independently? The answer is no, they cannot. Phrases cannot exist independently. They are always a part of a sentence. They always add some kind of meaning to the sentence. So let's take an example here. He is full of courage. This is a complete sentence right here. It expresses a complete thought. It conveys the entire meaning. Of all of this, students, do you think there is a phrase in this sentence? He is full of courage. So yes, students, we do have a phrase here, and our phrase here is full of courage. That entire thing, full of courage, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? These words are arranged in a way that it conveys some sort of a meaning, but they cannot exist independently because it's not a sentence. It does not express the complete meaning that needs to be expressed. What about here? A man lived beside the lake. Do you think that this sentence contains any phrases? a man lived beside the lake. So once again here, students, we have a phrase which is beside the lake. We noticed that a man lived beside the lake. Now, once again, I want you to notice here that phrases do not contain verbs, right? They usually come either after or before the verb, but they do not contain verbs on their own. So let's take one more example. 20 of them went on a safari for the whole day. What do we think is a phrase in this sentence, students? I think you can figure it out. So actually, we have two phrases in this sentence. 20 of them went on a safari for the whole day. Our first phrase here is on a safari. Our second phrase is for the whole day. Both of these phrases are simply groups of words. They cannot exist independently, but they do make sense just on their own, right? Now, what about these, right? The tourists were scared because they saw the lions. Students, are these sentences? Can you identify for me if both of these are sentences? So the first one here, the tourists were scared, is a sentence. It's a complete sentence. It contains a verb and it also conveys the entire meaning that needs to be conveyed. But the second one, because they saw the lions, just on its own, students, if I were to just say because they saw the lions, you would not understand the entire meaning. What happened because of the lions, right? You might be wondering, what is this? It cannot be a phrase because if you notice, it contains the word saw, which is a verb. So if it's not a phrase and it's not a sentence, what do you think the second one is? Let's jump into that, students. So we have phrases which don't contain verbs and we have clauses, right? The key difference between a phrase and a clause is that phrases don't contain verbs, but clauses always contain one main verb. Okay, they might contain multiple, but they will always contain at least one main verb. So tell me, do you think that clauses express a complete thought? We know that phrases do not. What do we think about clauses? So yes, students, clauses do express a complete thought. And if they express a complete thought, do you think that they can exist independently? If clauses express one complete thought, of course, they should be able to exist independently because they have the complete sentence structure. Students, I hope you remember from the last video that all sentences must contain one verb, if not more. So the verb is the one part of speech that is absolutely essential to every single sentence. Because clauses contain verbs, they can exist independently. They have the complete sentence structure. So if they have the complete sentence structure, do you think that they can also be sentences? What do we think, students? If clauses contain the complete sentence structure and if they can exist independently, do you think that a clause can also be a sentence? Of course, it can be a sentence, students. Clauses can be sentences because they can exist independently. They stand alone and they make sense on their own. But we have two types of clauses. If you noticed earlier, we saw two, right? The tourists were scared because they saw the lions. Both of these are clauses, but only one of them can be a sentence. Only one of them makes sense just on its own and can exist independently. So let's learn about these two types of clauses. We have firstly independent clauses and next we have dependent clauses. So independent clauses, as the word suggests, can be sentences. They have an independent meaning. They can stand on their own. For example, they work hard during the day. Our earlier example as well. The tourists were scared. Both of these are independent clauses. They can also be sentences. You can also add something to them, but on their own, they have an independent meaning, which is why they are independent clauses. Our second type is the dependent clauses. Now, as the name suggests, once again, dependent clauses depend on the independent clause, right? It cannot be a sentence on its own because it does not convey the entire meaning that needs to be conveyed. For example, until they become successful, right? If you were to join, they work hard during the day until they become successful. In that case, we have a big sentence and all of it makes sense. But just until they become successful on its own, it has a verb, but it cannot stand alone, which makes it a dependent clause. Our earlier example as well, because they saw the lions. On its own, it doesn't make entire sense, but if you were to join the two sentences, the tourists were scared because they saw the lions. In that case, that becomes a complete sentence. So notice, students, the difference between independent and dependent clauses. Independent can stand on their own, dependent cannot. So what do you think, students? It tastes wonderful. Do we think that this is an independent or a dependent clause? Now, if you look at it, you can see that it's a sentence, right? It tastes wonderful. The entire meaning is being conveyed just with these three words, which is why it's going to be an independent clause. What about here? I went to the park. Is this going to be a dependent or an independent clause? I went to the park. Once again, it's a complete sentence, which makes it an independent clause. But when Raj and Rani eat lunch together, what about this one, students? Is this an independent or a dependent clause? Now, you might be wondering, what happens when Raj and Rani eat lunch together? So this should give you a clue that what we are looking at right here is a dependent clause and not an independent clause. Because on its own, it does not convey the entire meaning that needs to be conveyed. So here we have a dependent clause when Raj and Rani eat lunch together. What about this one, students? We have Sandra and Lana have been friends for 10 years. Do we think this is an independent or a dependent clause? Once again, we see a full sentence, which means that it is going to be an independent clause. Now, let's take one last for now, the difference between independent and dependent clauses. After swimming in the ocean, do we think this is an independent or a dependent clause? After swimming in the ocean. Now, if you were to just read this much, right, after swimming in the ocean, you might wonder, what happens after swimming in the ocean? So once again, that should give you a little bit of a clue that what we are looking at right here is a dependent clause. The entire meaning is not being conveyed. We don't know what this sentence is trying to tell us. Now, students, we have learned three important things today. Firstly, what are phrases? Phrases are groups of words that are put together in a way that they make sense, but they do not contain a verb, which is why they cannot exist independently. And then we learned about clauses, right? Clauses, similar to phrases, are also groups of words, but clauses always contain one main verb. Now, clauses themselves are of two types. We have independent clauses and we have dependent clauses. Independent clauses are essentially sentences, right? They convey the entire meaning that needs to be conveyed. Dependent clauses, on the other hand, do not. They are always attached to or part of another sentence. Now, I want you to identify the phrases and the clauses in some questions. Place the book on the table. Can you identify the phrase in this particular sentence, students? All right. So here our phrase is on the table. We have place, which is our verb. The book is the object. And we have on the table, which is a phrase, a group of words arranged in a way that makes sense and is always a part of a sentence. Let's take one more, students. There was a hole in the dirty wall. Can you find the phrase in this particular sentence for me? So here our phrase is going to be in the dirty wall. If you notice, students, a lot of times, right, our phrases are going to contain some sort of a modifier, often adjectives when a part of the phrase is going to be an object or a noun, right? So they tell us a little bit more, about what is going on. So they add some more meaning to our sentence without informing us about what's going on in the sentence. So let's take one more here. We climbed up the old hill to see the view. Can you, using this previous example that I gave you, right, where phrases often contains adjectives or adverbs, can you identify the phrase here? We climbed up the old hill to see the view. Now, students, I hope you're able to see this. Here, our phrase is going to be up the old hill. Now, you might notice that a lot of the phrases that we have tried today begin with prepositions like up, like on, like in, beside. So this is a key thing that you should remember, students. Phrases often start with prepositions. They often contain nouns and sometimes adjectives that modify the nouns that are contained within the phrases. Now let's move on to a couple of questions where you have to identify the clause. The street smells of good food. I want you to identify the clause here as well as the type of clause. The street smells of good food. So this entire thing here is going to be a clause, right? The whole sentence is an independent clause. Let's take our last example for now. You may eat here or pack your food for home. What do we think, students? Are there more than one clauses in this sentence? And what are they? And what are their types? So here we have two clauses. Firstly, we have you may eat here. And next we have pack your food for home. Do we think that both of these are independent clauses or dependent clauses? Now, students, if you notice carefully, you may eat here. It's a sentence on its own, right? It makes sense on its own. It can exist independently. Same for pack your food for home. Once again, this group of words makes sense on its own. It could be a standalone sentence, which means that both of these are independent clauses. Both of these could be sentences on their own, but they are being joined using a conjunction to create an even bigger sentence. Now, students, I hope you've had fun learning with me today because earlier in the video, I told you that I would tell you a little bit more about ODA and also the bridge course. So let me bring you to ODA once again. ODA is a live online learning class, right? What we do is we teach our students with the best of teachers and the best of resources possible. We have also won the Most Innovative EdTech Award, and we have since been upgrading ourselves so we can provide you the best service possible. And for this exact purpose, we have created the bridge course for you, which is starting on this upcoming Monday. It starts on Monday and it's going to be 1 week long. So you are going to have classes from Monday to Saturday every single day. We will have 3 math classes as well as 3 science classes. And apart from teachers like myself who conduct these classes, you will also have your own teacher, a personal mentor teacher who will be responsible for tracking your progress and for helping you personally through this course and otherwise as well. Now, of course, as part of classes, you are going to be having homeworks on the app, and you're going to be having quizzes and tests on the app, and you are also going to be receiving books from us, which will help you when you want to practice even more. Now, those of you who have heard this and are excited to continue learning with me and teachers like me, you can click on the link in the description box and go ahead and enroll for the bridge course. I hope to see you all very soon, students, because you will also get to win lots of coins in the bridge course. Now, in this video, you have been answering my questions with no reward. But in the bridge course, we reward you for answering our questions correctly. We reward you for coming to class on time. We reward you for your discipline, for your attention. So, students, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and enroll now in the bridge course and come see me in class. And go ahead and like and share this video and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss my future videos. See you all very soon, students. Bye.